A man can be destroyed but not defeated. This is the strong message that we need today in this critical time when we are facing the deadly disease coronavirus. But I'm not here to talk about coronavirus, but I'm talking about the message that is given by Ernest Hemingway way back in 1951 through his novel The Old Man and the Sea. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Ruchi Mishra Tiwari. I am Professor of English and this is my channel Mahesh English Times. And please subscribe the channel and leave your comments in the end. At the same time, I would like to tell that this particular novel is very much relevant for the students of MA English Literature with the previous or final, and even in some cases it is useful for BA Honours students as well. So today we are going to talk about the novella Old Man and the Sea, written by Ernest Hemingway. Now it is called novella and not novel because we can use the oxymoron for it, that it is a long short novel. It is a short novel, and for short novel we use the term novella. So for Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea we are using novella, which is a long short novel. So this oxymoron could be used for it. This novel was written in 1951. It got published in 1952. It got Pulitzer Prize in 1953 and it got Nobel Prize in 1954. So it's really a magnificent novel with a strong message in it, for which Ernest Hemingway got Nobel Prize of Literature. He was an American writer. He died at the age of 61 and he underwent a lot of struggles and criticism in his life, which is depicted through this autobiographical, semi-autobiographical novel Old Man and the Sea, because the character Santiago, the protagonist of this novel, is symbolic, and he is representing the struggles that Americans and Ernest Hemingway has gone through in his life. The characters in this main novella are Santiago, Manolin, Marlin Fish and the sharks. These are the four main characters in this novella. So the story starts that Santiago is an old fisherman living in Cuba, and Santiago is a very old man and he has been labeled as an unlucky fisherman because he's living on the shores. He earns his livelihood by fishing on the seas of Cuba, but he is not able to catch the fish as other fishermen are successful in doing. So he's labeled as unlucky by everyone around him. He's criticized. His only friend and partner is that little boy Manolin, who used to come and help Santiago with food and clothing, and they're good friends. And Santiago shares with Manolin about his young days and how he used to go for fishing. Now, 84 days have passed and there is not a single fish that Santiago was successful in catching. So that was a very long period. But this old man called Santiago decides not to give up, and he decides to venture into the deep seas, into the Gulf Stream of Cuba, far away from the shore, far away from his home, and in search of big fish. So he thinks that if he goes into the Gulf Stream and he's able to catch fish which are big enough for him to eat and also for him to sell the parts of that fish, and he can survive and take rest for some days. So Manolin, on the other hand, wanted to go along with Santiago, but his parents do not allow him to go along with Santiago. So Santiago goes alone to the Gulf Stream, and when he reaches the middle part of the Gulf Stream, at the hook of this fish tank, he is able to catch fish, and he feels a lot of pressure. That hook is being pulled inward as if he has caught a giant fish, and when he sees it and Santiago realizes that he has actually caught this marlin fish. Now the characteristics of this marlin fish is that the fish is 94 kgs in weight and it is 18 feet in length. So it was much larger than even the boat on which Santiago was there. So he had caught a giant fish, a big success for him after 84 days. He feels very happy, but he is not able to manage and handle the giant fish of marlin. The marlin is able, marlin starts pulling the boat and trying to get rid of that hook on which it got caught, and the whole boat starts shaking, and the struggle between this fish, marlin and Santiago continues for 2 days and 2 nights. Now Santiago, this old man, gets very much exhausted and tired and doesn't know how to deal with it. But this fish, marlin, is shaking the boat and trying to pull out, and then ultimately the fish starts circling the boat in which Santiago was there. And Santiago is ultimately very tired, exhausted. 2 days, 2 nights have gone, but he still gathers all his strength and courage. And there's a sharp weapon or attached to the edge of that oar, which he uses for rowing the boat, and then he is successful in killing the marlin fish. So the marlin fish gets killed and it becomes stable and still, and then he decides that, okay, now I will take, and he ties the fish to the boat, and he decides to take that fish back home, so that he can lead a peaceful life there, because it was a giant fish being caught. It was a big success for Santiago after 84 days. Now as he was moving towards his home, towards the shore of Cuba, because marlin fish had died, there was blood stream in the water of the sea, and then all the sharks in that sea, they smelled that blood, and they tried to attack the marlin fish and eat its flesh away. So now Santiago had first struggle with marlin fish. After he kills marlin fish, he got success and he was a bit stable. The second attack he faces in this journey of going back home was of sharks, who were trying to eat the flesh of that dead marlin fish, and all the sharks attack. Again Santiago puts up a brave front. He fights with those sharks. He is successful in killing 5 sharks with that sharp weapon which he attaches to his oar and to that thing which he has to row the boat, and he's successful in killing those sharks. But still, there were so many of them, hundreds of sharks attack the marlin fish, that ultimately they eat away the flesh of that marlin fish, and only skeleton of the marlin fish remains. So ultimately, when Santiago reaches the shore, his home, with his boat was attached the skeleton of marlin fish. There was no flesh remaining because all the sharks had eaten away. But he put up a brave fight against the sharks. He killed many of them. He initially put up a fight with marlin fish also, who was trying to disbalance the boat and maybe make Santiago fall into the sea. But he was successful in the case of marlin fish. Second time, he put up a front with sharks, but he was not very successful as there were hundreds of them, and they ate the flesh of marlin fish. So ultimately, when he reaches shore, he's very tired and exhausted. He goes to his home and he sleeps. But the other fishermen who comes, who all come, and they gather around the boat which was lying on the shore of the sea, and they see that giant skeleton of the marlin fish, and they really appreciate Santiago. Earlier, they were all critical of Santiago, and they used to say that he is actually an unlucky fisherman. But now they are all praising him for the fact that he was successful in catching such a huge giant fish, and he was successfully bringing it back to the shore. And this little boy Manolin also comes along. He praises Santiago. Santiago is very tired, so he goes to sleep and starts dreaming of the better days in his life. And he used to dream of of the lions in the African jungle, and he used to have various dreams. Another important factor which moves in the story, which comes up in this story, is that Santiago the fisherman was inspired by a baseball player called DiMaggio. This baseball player, in spite of his spinal injury, he used to play like a champion and win all his matches. So Santiago is very much impressed by that baseball player. So I think the brave front that he puts up in front of the sharks and in front of the marlin fish is because of that inspiration which he has from a courageous player who, in spite of his injury, is playing like a champion. Now ultimately, towards the end, Santiago is taking rest in his home. Manolin is there to take care of him. He brings food and coffee for Santiago, but there was no fish left because marlin fish, all the flesh was eaten away by the sharks. So he is getting success, but not complete success, not complete victory. But his spirit remains undefeated. He is not able to be defeated by the circumstances. And this is the strong message which we need to imbibe in our lives right now also. In these trying times when we are facing this crisis of COVID-19 and we are locked inside our homes, we are confined to our homes, we are not getting all that freedom. But if our spirit remains undefeated, we'll definitely come out victorious from this situation. Now, another important factor which I would like to add here is the Greek elements or the Greek tragic elements which are present in this story. Now, there are two factors, Hemingway and Sisyphus. Now, this story, many critics have pointed out that this story has certain Greek tragic elements in it. First is of Hemingway. Now, Hemingway is a factor in Greek tragedies where it refers to the error of judgment of the protagonist. So here the protagonist Santiago has an error of judgment. This factor of Hemingway, this element of Hemingway is there in his in the story, where Santiago is not able to judge the situations in his life correctly. Now, the decision to venture out deep into the sea, not imagining what kind of situations he is going to face into the deep sea when he is going with a small boat, whether he will be able to manage the giant fishes which he is dreaming to catch off. He never thinks about that, you know. So that is why the error of judgment, the factor of Hemingway, is present in this story also, which used to be present in Greek tragedies. So Hemingway is a factor which is present here, where Santiago is not able to judge the situations of his life correctly, and he's not able to, you know, understand or, you know, imagine what kind of possibilities are there when he's venturing to the sea, and whether he will be able to face or manage those situations or not. So this factor is there. And second is Sisyphus. Sisyphus is another Greek tragedy element which is present in this story, and it is called Sisyphus means condemned to be unsuccessful. So Sisyphus is a factor which is described in Greek tragedies where the protagonist is, you know, labeled as unsuccessful in all circumstances. He's not able to get victory in his life and get success in his life. So similarly, we find that Santiago also in this American story by an American novelist is not able to get success in the end. He's not able to catch the fish alive, or he's not able to, you know, devour the flesh of that marlin fish, because only the skeleton remains, the sharks eat away. So he's not getting that complete success, and throughout the novel he's condemned as an unlucky fisherman. So this element of Sisyphus, which is present in Greek tragedies, is also present in this novel. So there are two elements of Greek tragedy present in this novella, Hemingway and Sisyphus. So these are very important parts of the story of The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. The message which strongly given in 1951 by this American writer is very much relevant. The spirit is not to be defeated and come out victorious in the end. I hope you like this video, and you will subscribe to my channel Mahesh English Times and give your comments in the end. I'll come up with more such videos. Thank you for watching. God bless you.